profit motivation by the private sector and academic excellence by the universities. So there is no good linking point to support this kind of trial. And one case, two cases have been given about the evidence available to make the case for the types of investment and the additional evidence that would be needed if available. And two of them have been given here. The first one is technology and innovation support centers that target expired patents in developed countries and those which are outside the region, which researchers can tap into for adaptation through value addition or adoption. And the second one is lack of research to generate evidence on how to have strong innovation ecosystems in Africa. As given at 2 examples of what need to be worked on in this case. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad you focused in your comments on what doesn't work as well as what works, because I think that's really important. Most of us probably learn more from things that fail than things that work. So that's a really important element of the discussion that you raised. Thank
you. Yeah, my name is Oliver Boachi, and I am presenting on behalf of Group 1. We started off by placing the questions in context, and that is why has STI, or research and development, not driven in African countries? And we gave examples of a few that have worked and some examples of interventions that are currently taking place and what we believe the challenges associated with them are. The practical examples of one that we believe has worked is the program that the DST of South Africa has initiated, known as the Technology Innovation Agency. The TIA initiative is one that has brought government, academia, and then the private sector together under the model that we all know as the triple helix model. Under this model, TIA has challenged the universities to focus on sector-specific areas, such as textiles, such as electronics, and so on. And they've managed to identify the key problems that exist in this small and medium-sized industries. And because of the success that has occurred in South Africa, a country like Nigeria, for example, is looking to adopt the South African model in Nigeria. What are other countries trying to do? First of all, we see that involvement of the private sector, as some of the presenters today mentioned, that we do research mostly from the supply side. You know, we just sit in the labs and in the universities and decide that we're going to do research, not necessarily linked to what the market is demanding. And so we believe that one of the missing links that is making it ineffective for research and development to drive development in Africa is the fact that we don't look at what is needed in the markets. But for the most part, and we all believe that the motivation for these universities are just to get promotions in their academic work and not to look at what they are doing as drivers for development in their various countries. An example was also given in a place like Brazil, where they have done very well to integrate the informal sector, because in most African countries, 60 to 70% of our markets are in the informal sector. And so we need to find ways to integrate the informal sector when we are making decisions about research and development. And I think one of the things that we have not managed to do is to gather evidence-based data and analyze them to see how we can bring the informal sector into our STI initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A really interesting summary, and one that certainly echoes back to earlier discussions about the importance of looking carefully at demand and not only having supply-side drivers. If we're going to create research, innovation, knowledge systems which truly meet social and economic needs, that is surely one of the most important things that we can do, and one of the really key messages to come out of this discussion. We are running very late, so unfortunately we won't have time now for more questions and discussions. There will be a report written up to capture, we hope, some of the presentations, the findings from the studies that have been done, which were presented this morning, the panel discussion, and this session. It would be very helpful if those people who made notes for the feedback sessions could give those notes to Nora here. So that will help us a lot in writing up the section of report which covers this session. I want to just thank you all for the quality of the discussions, for all the energy and effort that you put into this session. I think it was very useful, and it will feed into lots more discussion and thought as we take forward initiatives related to research, innovation and knowledge systems from our different institutional perspectives. I'm just going to hand over to Leah, who's going to close this.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Leah Mwai, and I'm from the DFID East Africa Research Hub. And as Joanna said, we are out of time, so I have the very privileged, but I think very unenviable task of summarizing all the rich discussion that happened today, but also standing between you and your lunch. So, and I have to do that, I guess, in less than 10 minutes. So I'm going to try. And just to highlight what has already been mentioned, so the event report will be shared, so I'm only sharing highlights of what I heard. And also just to highlight that the presentations that were presented today, all the material, and they're all published, and we'll make an effort to share and circulate that material. So a quick highlight and very quick run through of what I had today. So the first thing I had was that there is an opportunity. Somebody talked about the STIT's commitments and the fact that there is a renewed focus and momentum in investing in research and innovation on the continent, but there are some problems because despite this, it's fragmented and we're not achieving maximum synergies and impact, particularly with regards to social economic development. Some of the things that came out was the need to conceptualize and reframe our ideas and our vision of success. And some of the things that came up here was the idea about moving beyond the goal of academic excellence to talking more about even beyond economic development to really things that have impact on the population like social economic development. And this requires us, and it was very well articulated by Tade, the idea of moving from single disciplines to unity of sciences to unity of knowledges in this fourth industrial revolution. And then the idea also in reconceptualizing about moving from STEM to STEAM, and I wouldn't even try to say more about that because it was very well articulated by the participants. I think the other thing that came up was the idea that context is key, and it's not debatable at all, but I think we also had again from Tade the idea that we need to move beyond just thinking about context, but also thinking about politics in context. And then this requires us to think about identifying some critical levers or entry points to engage with stakeholders in context. And some of the things we talked about here was the idea of thinking about things like national or human security or climate change as those strategic levers that can help us to move beyond specific disciplines or sectors to something that will resonate with the population. And I think the idea here was also the importance of moving from thinking more about beyond evidence to belief and ideology. I really liked that, that thinking, because I think it can help us to think about how to move beyond, to improve what we're doing. So, and then the other thing, again, I really enjoyed hearing some of the ideas that were coming up about if we're going to do this well, we need to identify apostles, you know, and advocates, and to think about advocacy differently. To coalition and movement building, again, I think here the example that was given was the Next Einstein Forum as something that we can think about in that way. And then the other thing here that came across was, obviously linked to that, is engaging government or all the stakeholders very, very early. And the other thing that I had very clearly was the idea of moving, understanding that research is not linear. The pathway from research and innovation to development is not linear. What does that mean for us? There was this concept of identifying this and really focusing on this missing middle. And this is the private sector. I think that was very well articulated, so I won't go beyond that. But there was the idea that we really need to think about how to strengthen that, particularly because in Africa, we can't copy-paste what comes from the north and in Africa in terms of what that private sector entails. And the idea that in Africa, there's a big informal sector that's a big component of that. So the other thing that came out resoundingly clear was that the current funding model is a key obstacle to impact and sustainability. And this was with regards to the short-term, externally led and multiple intermediaries involved. And the fact that we should all understand that there is no single funder who can address all these issues. So we need to think of new ways of working. And here, I think what came across very clearly was the need to think more and more about this multi-funder, multi-stakeholder, integrator models that can help us be more efficient. And a point that came out here was also the need to learn from the past and see how we can do that. Because some of these have been tried and there are some lessons learned from before. The other thing that came out linked to that was the fact that it's important to work together, but at the same time, let not that hamper our progress. And I think the main point I'd like to highlight here was what Alex said, that if you want to go near, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. But if you want to go nowhere, you go with everybody. So it's very important that we think about how to work together, but also realize that we need to make progress. The last point I'd just like to highlight was also just about the importance of realizing that all the levels of investment are important in terms of targeting an individual capacity, but also institutional capacity strengthening, but also thinking about the ecosystem and thinking about how we can balance between equity and excellence. So I think I'll stop here because I think it's too much to summarize everything in just these few minutes, but I think those were the highlights. And I just encourage us to continue this conversation. And I'm really sorry because before we go, I want to invite Nora here for one last thing that I promise is not too much of a distraction from lunch, but thank you very much. I'll hand over to Nora.
Okay, so I think we'll just log into our Slido again. Very quickly to evaluate how this session went. And after we do this, so you'll vote very quickly on the questions. So that first question, what is your overall evaluation of this event? So please log into your Slido. The event code is KSI, so you can vote. And let us know how this went. Thank you. I can see votes coming in. Thank you. More votes coming in. Yeah, so I just want to go on to the other question. So your feedback is very important for us to enable us planning of the other sessions. Okay. So I'll go to the other question. If you're done voting on the first question, thank you. I can see 18 votes. satisfactory. Thank you for your feedback. I'll go to the next question. So what is your overall, what aspects of the event were most of value to you and why? So maybe you can just type that. Whether it was the morning panel, presentations, or the group discussion, so it would be good to get your feedback. So the aspects you can just highlight. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. The panel, the presentations, the group discussions, the networking, speakers, reflections. Thank you. So I have 19 votes. Good enough. So I'll go to the other, if you can just continue voting. Thank you. The third question, the aspects of the conference that was least value to you. So you can vote on that. None, thank you. None, thank you. Cold room, I know, thank you. Tea, all right. We'll include coffee next time. Okay, thank you. What, I think this question is supposed to read, what should have been done differently to improve your experience? I think we have noted on the things that were of least value to you. So none, thank you. None. Okay, thank you. So the other question, from your perspective, what one key message or one recommendation should we all take away from this event? From your perspective, what one key message or recommendation should we all take away from this event? Communication, thank you. Focus more, all right. Okay, thank you. STEAM is highlighted. All right. Okay, thank you. So, okay, then I'll just let you put your comments, if you have further comments, on the comment session. So just to let you know a couple of logistics, that the IRDFF meeting will be in Kivukoni 1 and 2, same place here, but this section. And lunch is served at Serengeti restaurant, where breakfast was served. And I believe you all have the vouchers. Thank you so much. Lunch vouchers were actually everyone has been given.
Green leather sofa, got 2 rides, a limousine with the chauffeur. Phone bill about 2 G's flat, no need to worry, my accountant.
Then the advisory committee for KSI, I think you're aware, will be meeting parallel to the IRDFF session, but on Kivukoni 3, this other side. Sorry for that.
To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, allow me to lace these lyrical douches in your bushes. Who rock grooves and make moves with all the mommies. The back of the club, sipping Moet is where you find me. The back of the club, macking holes, my crew's behind me. Mad question asking, blunt passing, music lasting.